In this video, I'm going to show you how to wet sand your car, whatever car that is. I'm going to use the 45 as an example because its paintwork has never been polished nor touched in, I think, 18 years. And it's certainly coming up a treat on one side compared with the other side that hasn't been wet sanded yet. It's a very simple process, but it's something that people get wrong frequently. Disclaimer, I'm not a professional. I have just used what works for me and what I've been told to do by people who are either more experienced or professionals themselves. Now, I'm going to show you the tools and resources that you need in order to do this. As I say, if you've got any other suggestions, you may have different ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you on one particular panel how to wet sand, and then we'll see the final results. Now, for this job, you're going to need a mop, a good dual action polisher, not one of those orbital ones, those single spinning ones. We need one that's dual action, so it's moving left and right all the time as well as rotating, and that's what these do. I mean, this one is a Draper D20 polisher. I mean, obviously you've got to have the batteries and the chargers, but once you've got the batteries and chargers, this tool is about £50. You will need this to basically clean the bodywork, make sure the bodywork is clean before you start. You will need a bottle of water, of which you're going to be spraying quite a bit. You need a jug with some sandpaper inside, already pre-soaked. I use 2000 grit in general, 2000 grit. That seems to be the basis of a great finish, but also removing swirls and light scratches and little impediments in the paintwork without damaging the paintwork. 1500 grit is for specific areas that need a bit more repair, and therefore you need to be a bit more aware when you go about that. I will show you how to use that more in a second. And then your cutting compound. G3 admittedly is not the best. There are better cutting compounds out there. I would not skimp. If I'm going to look for a cutting compound after this finishes, it will be in the £30 to £40 bracket, because those are the cutting polishes that body shops use. They are very good at what they do. Obviously, you need to be aware how to use them, read the instructions, make sure you understand how to use the product, do some research. But G3 is okay, and it has cut the paintwork quite nicely, and it's still, we're getting a nice finish. And I've been doing a lot of work on this side. Now, I have already previously videoed that, and I'm going to show you some clips now of what I previously did. Again, that is what you should be left with. This is the clear coat, and it means you're doing a good job. You're just taking a slight little layer of the clear coat off, getting rid of all them little imperfections. Right, this has been wet sanded. Okay, clear. This hasn't. Look at all that. Whatever that is, I don't know, but it's tar. Bits over here, that will come out just as well as this panel. Now, I don't know if you can see, but wet sanding can be very revealing, and it's just revealed my first little bit of rust. We've got a rust bubble there and a little rust bubble there just coming through. That is possibly the start of the wing starting to rot out, but that is actually nothing compared to other Rover 45s. They can completely rot out at the bottom from what I've seen, so I'm actually quite lucky. I've caught that just in time before it probably gets worse. What I will do, I mean, it didn't look bad from the other side, but when I get the Dynax spray, I will make sure that this is clean and waxed on the underside just to slow it down. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, that might develop, because when it starts it generally gets worse, but considering the amount of years the car's been standing outside, that's nothing. I've known some cars, and it was like this on my P6, there were certain areas that were bubbling up, and when you start to see bubbling, you think it's going to be a hole in 6 to 12 months. But actually, over about 5 years ownership, there was a bubble down here on the Rover, and it didn't get worse. And I didn't do anything, actually. I didn't even wax it on the other side. I just cleaned it, and it didn't actually deteriorate. So sometimes the bubbles can get to a certain point and then they stop. it's not always the case that as soon as that starts happening, it's terminal. But we'll just keep an eye on this panel, but it's good to know these things. Now, even though that this panel, this little trim panel has got imperfections, I'm going to have to do it the non-abrasive way, because if I sand that, it's actually going to fade the paint even more, and these are really hard to get hold of in good condition. This is far better than the old one, but I want to preserve it, so I might have to use my Magna to see if I can get rid of any tar spots on here, any additional stuff. Ideally, I'd like a way of refurbing it, but there's no way of getting the stickers. And I can paint the panel, but this panel is actually a different silver to the rest of the car. This is a completely different colour. Maybe it's just standard silver, but these panels always stick out on the other models. So let's say you got a blue Rover 45, this would still be silver. I think it's just a standard silver, but getting the stickers, I don't know where to get them from. So bit of a weird one that, but we're just going to continue going about just down here, just using any excess water. But it's coming up really nice. So we are getting like chips all over the place. I think on the door panel there, you would never have spotted that before. Even with a clean, I didn't spot that, but it's revealing itself really nicely. Unfortunately, the driver's door sill where you come in, camera, come on, it is scratched here, but I'm hoping that will polish out and I can get the dirt out to make them less visible, which is the idea. Just some areas that I can possibly go over. I may have to go down to 1500 for this section, but otherwise 2000 grit is working for my car. And if you want to go further, 2500, which is a finishing sandpaper. Right, I've just gently hosed off. Now what I have done is I've actually gone a bit further above and beyond, as they say. I've actually gone and wet sanded the entire bottom of the sill. See, this is the bit, the sill cover that is, this is the bit that's really smooth. This is the bit that people don't see, and most people would just do it up to here and then underneath would be completely because no one's going to see that. But I prefer to do it properly while I'm doing it, because once it's waxed, I'm not going to want to mess about with this anymore. That has now gone pretty flat. I'm going to dry up and then we're going to do the polish. Done. I mean, there is no swirls. There's just a couple of chips there. It is quite an annoying panel on this car, because it's actually come up really well. Just the odd things there, but you know, that's the way it is. But it looks so much nicer. Now it just lines up with the rest of this side of the car. Now that's all been done, I have got to go on sort of the roof panel here, and I've got to finish off the sills, but that's that. I'm glad. The sun has just come out quite a bit, which is perfect for this kind of weather. It's not too hot, bit of sun, and that door is finished. We've just gone over with another clean microfiber cloth. Now the problem is when you do this sort of job, you do reveal a lot of things. I mean, again, there's some chips here that I actually didn't spot, but the truth is that's what happens when you wet sand. You're going to find even more imperfections because you're going down even further. But the actual state overall is just brilliant. I mean, I'm just going to put a bit of touch-up paint there. I've done so there as well, but that's it. I'm just going to go over the sill again. I need to actually clean up the sill because I haven't done that. I'll do that with my dirty towel. There's a bit of polish left there. Just make sure it's nice and clean. Just go over again. All the bits on the trim, just in these grooves, all gone. The trims have come up really well. I had to touch up the end there because naturally the driver's door is suitable for bashing. That is what the wet sanding has revealed. It has revealed a driver's door that's had a few knocks, but you know, that's to be expected. And obviously someone's been dragging things into the car, hence those scratches just there. There is a scratch here. Yeah, you can see that scratch there. Now I'm going to try 1500 on that, okay, gently, and see if it can come back up. 1500, polish, 2000 polish, and then we'll do the same. So we're going to see if we can fade that out. I don't think there's anything else really that stands out like a sore thumb. I think there's something that's just excess polish actually. I'll just wipe that clear. Yeah. What you can correct, and this is very common with factory painting, is orange peel. Now orange peel is something you'll probably commonly see on a car if it has never been wet sanded before from the factory. And from the factory the paint jobs are really good, but the finishing leaves some to be desired. This Focus, it has the same problem, orange peel in specific areas. But if I just take you here, I think there you go, you can see against the white. You see, if you look at the windows, right, you got the white. Look at there we go, my camera's picking up very nicely. That is exactly what you want to see. The wet sanding has taken even the orange peel back a little bit further, so it's less obvious, so you get the less waves basically, and that's essentially what it is. But that's just amazing. It really is amazing. And now I've just got to finish on that side, and I'm done. Little by little, you just got to take it steady as it goes. Now I didn't really give much of an instruction there, but I'm going to take you to a panel on the passenger side that has not been treated whatsoever. No, this is not a demonstration of how to do some wet sanding. This is a demonstration of how you do one job on a car and then you discover another problem. And it is leaking boot. Can you guess where it's leaking from? Yeah, I've had to go over this seam again because we were getting water ingress through this little seam just down here, and I could see a puddle in the boot well. Don't ask how I discovered that after doing some wet sanding. I was just going over this area on the inside. Again, they didn't lacquer the inside of the boot, and I've had to seal that up. These lights are very easy. Just take the multi-pole connector, 4 8mm screws, and the lights come out. As I say, they come out quite easy off those studs. And obviously each of them, I've got this foam. Now sometimes this foam can give up, and this can be a source of leak, so I might put some sealant around them, but they don't look too bad, to be honest. Now I've just gone and cleaned all around the area. I've done a bit of wet sanding while I was at it. The truth is, my job that I did couple of months ago now at least, it didn't go well, and there was some surface rust coming in again, so I've had to go right back to bare metal and put some zinc primer on. I am going to put a top coat on, which is kind of what caused the issue in the first place. I have some leftover Starlight silver, so I'm going to go over that lip again. But anyway, next pressing issue, anyway, wet sanding. Now this is the worst part, but this is kind of what it should look like. It should start to look a little bit on the hazy side, cloudy, milky. That's when you know you're taking off a little bit of the clear coat, which is exactly what you need to do when you're wet sanding. I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how to go over a typical panel. Now I'm hoping the camera can pick it up. So where my fingers are, there's a scratch here, there's some scratches all along here. Now I reckon polishing would eliminate that pretty much, but I'm going to show you how wet sanding can go a little bit further and get rid of pretty much 99% of this swirl mark. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to get in there with the water and the sandpaper. Okay, now this is 2000 grit sandpaper. This is what I'm using for this particular job. I wouldn't recommend you go lower unless there's really bad imperfections. In that case, I'd be very cautious with 1500 and go very gently. Now what I would suggest is you use light pressure. Don't put pressure and jag it in. You're not taking away paint. Well, you will take away paint if you do it that way. You do it very lightly. Just douse the panel, make sure the panel is clean. This door has been cleaned prior to this, so just douse it in water. Okay, it does help to have one of these bottles. Now douse the sandpaper again. Now we're just going to go in. You can do the whole panel as such, or start from left to right. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to tackle this scratchy haze down here. Just spray as you're going along doing it. Light pressure only. Backwards, downwards, sideways. Keep going at different angles, gently, very gentle. And what you should see is a haze building up, okay? You will start to see all the imperfections starting to show. As you're going about it, you'll see a little bits of tar that your clay bar did even pick up. Bits that can't even, a clay bar may have missed, or you may have missed, but that's okay, because you can just take it off quite easily, and it should just start to go really cloudy now. Just going to concentrate on these scratches here. Right, now it's starting to go a bit hazy now where it's going flat, so you're taking that layer of finished layer of the clear coat off. You can go 2500, that is another option, but to be truthful, 2000 has worked for me on this car and it hasn't produced any bad results at all. And that is one slippery panel. That feels gritty, that feels smooth, and straight away you feel the difference, and you will see the difference very soon. Okay, right, I've actually gone over the back bumper and a bit of the quarter panel, but I've done the entire door, so I've done this bit going down here. Now this is the panel we're going to do for this demonstration purposes. As I say, this is just a quick video about how to wet sand. Really, there's plenty of other videos that can show you how to do this. Hopefully I'm going to show you the end product maybe towards the end of this video. But anyway, I've done the entire door. What you'll find is that the sandpaper will, as it wears, it will become even finer to the point where it doesn't have the blunt edge that it had when you started on the panel, when you're using that new bit of sandpaper. Even a 2000 grit, it could virtually become 3000 grit by the time you've got to the end of this panel, and all it takes is a panel this size, and it's very, very fine indeed. And you can tell because it's not quite catching. You might find that it's because that's quite hazy there. That's when I changed to a newer sandpaper. But sometimes you don't have to, if you really feel that it's actually catching quite nice, and you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your hands. And when you go gentle with sandpaper, you'll feel as if it's gone rougher. It will be quite rough actually at first. This is the thing. When you start on a panel, even though the panel is clean, there is an awful lot of surface impediments that even a clay bar can't get at. And this is the misconception, and I've been told this by quite a few bodywork people. Clay bars are not entirely successful at eliminating surface imperfections. For instance, contaminants stuck to the paint. It should get them all off, mostly, but you'll still have the imperfections that a clay bar can't repair. And people think that a clay bar is the ultimate polish prep as you work, because you do a clay bar, you clean it, you do a clay bar, you dry it off again, and then you're ready for the polish. Well, I've discovered otherwise, and a wet sand I think is a must, particularly with a car that's never been polished in many years, always got a lot of swirl marks on the paint. Now it's more relevant for this car to have it because Panther Black is incredibly bad at bringing up the swirls. And if I don't know if it will pick up, the camera will pick this up. Oh, there we go. No, doesn't want to play ball with me today, but there's a lot of swirls on that bonnet, and I am actually going to try and get that bonnet up better, because this panel has no bubbling. It has, to be honest with you, apart from this going on here, I don't know what that is about. I'm going to try the same technique with this car. I mean, obviously this has been resprayed, so there's no swirl marks on this side. But yeah, the same technique can be applied to all cars really. But that's what it should look like. It should look completely and utterly hazy. It should look dreadful. It looks dreadful. But that's because it hasn't been polished up. And a lot of this is just haze. There we go. Now obviously we've got some major scratches there. Wet sanding is not magic. It will not get rid of scratches like that. That is unfortunate, but the polish will also take more of the edge off. The idea of wet sanding is it takes the edge off. It takes a lot of the small swirls that you get on paint, that polish can sometimes not even eliminate. Polish doesn't actually get rid of swirls. It doesn't cut that. Most polishes cut quite fine, particularly stuff that you get at any auto factors or Halfords, or like Auto Glim's the one I go for, G3. They don't cut very well. The ones that cut might be able to do more, but wet sanding for me is something that anybody can do. All you need is 2,000 grit sandpaper, or 2,500 grit sandpaper, and water out your tap and a spray bottle. So, you know, so I'm going to now clear this panel off, and then we're going to mop it. I do apologise on the lack of focus on this episode. I mean, to be fair, this is quite a quick job. I have just wiped away all the excess water and moisture off the surface, and as you can see, this is what it's left. That is what you want. It's a haze. It's a light haze. It looks dreadful, doesn't it? It looks totally dreadful. You can still see some of the minor scratches in there, but that's where the polish comes in. Again, same for the back panel. It's just gone completely flat. That's what you want to see. What I have done is I've used the last of the Starlight MBB Silver just to go over the lip. I have made a complete mess. I've had to wipe off overspray and everything, because naturally when you paint such things, it tends to go everywhere. But now it's fully protected, and I should have done that before. I just don't understand why. And as you can see, this is my life at the moment, just everything's a mess. But it's looking really neat, and I'm glad I've actually tidied around the lights, because I was aware that there was some crud around there. Now I know. I just hope that I haven't disturbed by removing the seals. Now the rear lights are going to leak, because I know that the rear lights have not leaked on this car. It's not that. It's this seal, which I've just gone over in a bit of silver. Put some silicone and some silver just to touch it up. There has been a reaction. Unfortunately, that my lack of prep work has cost me a little bit, but the truth is, this is not a piece that you can see. This piece, because you got the rubber that sits here, but you can't really see it too much. So I'm not too bothered about that, to be honest. As long as the lip is good, and I'm now satisfied that that is fully protected. That's the amount of metal that's been lost. There's like 3 different layers of metal that are welded together, well, spot welded I should say, because you've got the spot welds going up. There was a bit of metal loss around here, but hopefully that's fully protected. I do need to go over with a bit of lacquer to give it that extra bit of protection, but that should be good now, because we've basically, I should have done that in the first place. I am aware of a common problem that these cars face, particularly Rover 25s, where they start going around the latches. But the truth is, I think it's just surface. Again, I just put zinc primer on there when I started doing the work on this car very early on, and it's just started to come through because I didn't protect it. How stupid move was that? To be honest with you, I will probably go over and spray some paint on that in the long-term future, but I'll probably, that might be a tailgate off job. But at the end of the day, I'm not too concerned that there's any like terminal rust, because there's certainly no leakage in the car, and there's really no areas where I think that's a bit of an issue. So we'll monitor that and go forwards. Yeah, so basically now you need to apply the polish. Now it helps if you have the mop, orbital mop. You can do it by hand, but it's not as effective. I would suggest you go and get a mop. They're not expensive. You don't have to get a cordless one. You can get a corded one, as long as it's a dual action one, like I said earlier. So dual action, blob. Make sure that mop is damp, okay, because if it's dry it will powder old car polish everywhere from your previous use. So make sure it's a bit damp, put some water on it, spread it around, then put a couple of blobs of polish on it, and then literally get the polisher and just wipe it all on the panel you're going to do, so you're smearing the polish everywhere. So I've dampened the pad just to give it a bit of a wipe. It is actually quite milky, as you can probably see from my trousers. I won't have it too wet, but just have it damp. You should never do it when it's dry, so just some dabs. I have shaken this before, by the way. Now You can smear it on with your hand, or you can just put it on the panel. So just gonna smear it on the panel. It is a little bit too damp actually. I should have made it less, a bit more dry, but it helps to spread it. This is the bit where you let the machine do the work for you, as opposed to you doing the work. And what you end up with is this panel is now as polished as what it can be. You can actually buff it in a bit more than this, and I probably will do so. I've done a bit around here. Some of the tar spots were stuck to the inner lip, but this inner lip is so nice. You can see all the spot welds on it. Seriously. And then this bit here, you've got a few stubbing areas on here, but it's all come up really, really nicely, like most of the car. Now, the next step is to just let that sit for a few minutes. Let the polish do its work. By sitting there, you don't buff off immediately. That's only, I think that's a bit of a myth, to be honest with you. You have to buff off immediately. Just let it sit there for a few minutes. Obviously today it's not overly sunny. It's just a nice overcast day. It's not that bad. So we're going to buff off in a few minutes using any microfiber will do, as long as it's relatively clean. I use my red one. Actually, I've got it here somewhere. Yeah, so this one, it's not clean, but it's free from contaminants, and this is what I'll use to take up most of this, and then I'll use a different microfiber to completely finish it off. And in fact, I will use this to go over areas like here where I haven't done this bit, so I only want to do this bit, and to go over the lip as well. Just little tiny areas that you need to get in, and these sort of areas where I might need to apply polish by hand. Hand polishing is okay for the little corners here and there where a mop isn't really suitable. And this is the part where you actually realise the bits where you may have gone a little bit too much with the sandpaper, a bit too heavy, but that's okay, because all you're going to do is cause slight haze. It can buff out with more polish, so you have to do like some more polish, then some more polish, then some more buffing. It takes a while. You may see new scratches, not because you've caused them, but because those scratches were just hidden in the paintwork. That's why cleaning, clay barring, it doesn't cut it quite, and you start to get to know your car better once you've done a wet sand. There were some scabs on the wing, the front driver's wing, which I just showed you earlier in the video, from my previous little episode of wet sanding, off camera mainly, and I wouldn't have seen those little scabs. I mean, it's not even a scab, it's more of a tiny rust bubble, and there's no rust on the other side. It's just probably a paint defect that's opened up. But that rust bubble, I did not see that after cleaning and clay barring. I literally didn't see it. That's how much that wet sanding reveals the surface. And as I'm cleaning this, I can see a huge difference. The only thing that I would say is that we haven't eliminated all the scratches here. I can still, there's like minor ones here that I might go over, and there's some minor ones here which I'll have a crack at again, just concentrating areas. And this is the thing, when you buff off once, this is the time where you need to see all the areas, all the imperfections that you may have missed, and go over and concentrate on those areas only, and then polish again, then wipe off again, and see if it's made a difference. You have to do this process a good 2 or 3 times on one panel, which is why bodywork, paintwork correction is so expensive. End of. It is labour intensive, and it takes as long as it takes. final buff off. I've given this 2 lots of polishing. There was just these scratches, and these scratches were a bit difficult to get out, and there was a couple of other indentations along here, light, very light scratches that have come out completely. And it's not something, unfortunately, that I can pick up on my camera, otherwise I'd actually show you this. We're talking about small imperfections. We've got a couple of chips down here, but very minor. Now, I don't know if the camera can actually pick up. Oh yes, it is. You can just about see that haze. Even with a couple of rounds of polishing, it's still not quite come out. But I'm going to actually crack on more with that long term, because actually that's the worst haze on the car, or greys I should say. But the arch lip has come up so nicely. It's all looking really nice. But yeah, just there, you can see it's a bit hazy. I just need to go over again with some polish specifically on that area, but it's come out quite nice. I mean, you can barely make it out now, and that's the point. You know, no one's going to go and stand right this close to your car and look at a few scratches. They're going to stand from about here. I can't see anything. They've completely gone. I could see those scratches from over here. Now they're gone. That's the idea. Wet sanding isn't a magical cure, but it really does embed the surface with a really, really nice sheen. There's no swirl mark on that panel. The only imperfections are those scratches, which are quite deep, and they have gone through to the primer. I can actually tell. Now that's been wet sanded, that hasn't. Now you can't exactly tell much of a difference in this light, but really honestly there is. Very, very minimal, but it's the shine. Look at the shine from the sun. The sun is setting, you get the shine on that panel. I haven't done this top half of the quarter panel. I've just done below the filler neck. I've got to concentrate on that area more. I haven't really got round to doing the bumper because I've got to put all this back together. As far as this video is concerned, that is how you wet sand the car, and I'm just going to do every panel going forwards. I've already done the roof. Don't know if I can actually show you if I just lower the boot down. So I've done that half of the roof. I haven't done that half. Bit of a difference, isn't there? And I have done most of this side of the car completely. I haven't done the bonnet. I think I'm going to come to that last. As I say, this part of the car has been wet sanded. Few imperfections like this. I mean, there's some cracks here that I was aware about, but it's only minor. But now that's come up really nice now. Now that's all nicely painted. I'm just going to go over some lacquer, and then I'm going to put it all back together. Honestly, I don't need to show you how to put your back lights in. It's literally, they slot in here. There's 4 nuts. Where are they? These 4 nuts go on the studs on the back of the headlights. There you go. There's 4 studs. One's come out, by the way. One of them did. The nut was actually stuck to the stud, but that will just screw back in and thread back in really nicely. I'm going to leave you here, guys, with just this quite random video, but as it always is, random stuff goes on. You find more jobs to do and it builds up. But hey ho, we are going firmly towards the Pride of Longbridge. I think the next video will be just a few add-ons that I've done to the car prior to the Pride of Longbridge, and the bodywork will be completed. The wet sanding will be done on every single panel. See, look at that. Look at this side. I've actually caught it at the perfect time. See, the camera can struggle to pick up these things, but that's how good it looks with a wet sand. All this quarter panel going all the way up the car. Can you see that? Now, polishing alone would struggle to get near that that level of perfection, considering that this car was like sandpaper when I first started. I haven't done the bumper at all. I've wet sanded it, but I haven't polished it, so it's a sheen. Take care, guys. See you very soon.